So hello and welcome to this week's angling blog. This week you join me out on the bank and we're in search of carp on the pole and the feeder. Before we do get into this week's blog, I just want to say thank you to everybody that left a nice comments on a recent video, wishing me well after COVID. It really did knock me for six, and it's only this week really that I began to feel a little bit more human, not as tired. And this morning I woke up, it's a Sunday morning, and I couldn't wait to get out on the bank. Today's the morning when the clocks have gone forward. There's a bit of a blue sky about, there is a bit of a wind, but when that sun comes out, it's got a bit of warmth to it. So hopefully, by keeping our tactics simple, we can get one or two fish on the bank. What a lovely morning to be on the bank. It's about 11 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I've took my time getting set up, and the hope today is just to get one or two carp on the bank. That is where we're going to be sat, nice and simple. Tactics wise, I've got a line on the pole round about here, and on that we're just going to feed maggot and the pellet, and we've also got a method, and I'm just going to fish into open water to begin with. And we've got plenty of water to explore. There's nobody else on the pool as of yet. It is a Lymm Anglers water on the Belmont complex for those interested, and yeah, if nobody turns up in this area, then we've got all this water in front to explore. For the side tray, nice and simple, we've got around a pint and a half of maggot there, and hopefully it'll be enough. There are one or two roach in the venue that I'm expecting to catch, but hopefully, if we be really positive, Mr. Carp won't be too far behind. In here we've got some of the Hinders pellets, and what I did with them when I arrived is I put some water on them to soak them for about a minute, drain the water. After I drained the water, I put a tiny capful of this over the pellets. For those interested in the components that I use, they're the bait bands that I use to put the pellet on the hook with the feeder. On the pole rigs, I'm a great fan of these from the river season, so they're the hooks. And on the method, I always use a grapple hook. I've caught loads of barbel on them over the years, super strong. So you go with whatever you've got confidence in. Over the time, I've built confidence in that hook just from the barbel fishing and the carp fishing on the feeder. That's the hook link that I use. Hook bait wise for the feeder, we've got a choice of two colours. We've got the new Tutti Frutti from Hinders, and they're in orange. And you've always got to bring a bait you've got confidence in, and they're ones that I've had loads of bites on in pink. So yeah. So setup wise on a pole, we've got a 4x10 F1 maggot float. We've got the yellow elastic from Drennan, and hopefully that's going to be strong enough today. We've got some of the Dinsmore sticks down the line, evenly strung. It's down to a size 18 hook. We're going to be nice and positive today. That's the pole cut we're going to be using, so we can nice and accurate, and hopefully just feed those maggots nice and positively and get Mr. Carp. Put a little bit of bait in while I was setting up, and just starting off in line with that tuft on the other bank. Be quite positive, like you can see there, plenty of the maggot and the pellet. And so they've had a few roach in here, so I imagine them and the good Jim will be the first on the scene, but you've got to put enough in to feed them, and hopefully there'll be enough left to attract Mr. Carp, who never misses out on a party. Is a margin that I do know the carp come along. If you've watched the blog regular, you'll remember that used to be a big willow, so the carp do still come along this margin despite it not being there anymore. And you're just hoping, to intercept them. It is that first day on the bank today where there's a bit of warmth in the sun. The wind's blowing a bit, but it's not cold. You're just hoping, well, the carp are awake because I've seen them jump, and you're just hoping now to get one or two bites. Taken about 5 minutes and the float is bedded. It was quiet for the roach, and I did think maybe the plan had worked, because obviously the target today isn't Mr. Roach, it is Mr. Carp, and when it was quiet it did make me think whether he was in the swim. That float dotted right down and it's bedded. Now we just got to see if the elastic is up to the task. It's just going to be a case of just taking our time and just trying to ship back to that top section when he calms down a bit. And now we've got him down to the top kit in much more control. It does look like a nice one. So just pop the tip under the water for any of those that are new. It just kind of brings them back round, in front of you. You can see there, a bit of elastic out, but I am someone who likes to have a bit of fun when they're on the pole. There's no point just sculling them in. And you can just see the seasons are changing now. And it does look like a nice one. We just got a glimpse of him. When I didn't get a bite from them roach, I had an idea that Mr. Carp might have been on the scene. But what a lovely way to start the day. Took me time setting up, got the gear right, fed the swim, and yeah, started off with a lovely common carp, and hopefully this is the first of a few today. And time to let him go. You can see fighting in the net to get away. Back he goes. Let's get back out there, and hopefully it's a good sign. And that is the difference when Mr. Carp isn't in the swim. You get fish like that, Mr. Gudgeon. And I always believe if the gudgeon grew, you know, to be a couple of pound, everybody would be fishing for them. So doing the vlogs weekly, you've always got to have a backup plan. And this winter, if the rivers were flooded, this place was going to be one of the venues who was going to come, you know, and do a silvers fishing video on it. So a few more gudgeon and roach on the pole. Decided to come on the feeder for a little bit. Put a few maggots and a bit of pellet on the swim so I can go back on it. But just made a gentle cast just into open water. I'm using the smallest feeder. That means I'm not leaving much of an imprint. You know, the cast here and don't get a bite. I can cast about the swim and I'm not leaving too much bait in one area. You know, if you've got a big feeder and you don't get a bite, there's a big patch of pellet. Whereas with them really small feeders, you're just really searching around for the bite. So we've just had a bit of a disaster. We've had one come off halfway in. You know, I was just about to grab the camera and yeah, it pinged off. So yeah, proves that they are moving out there. So I've gone straight back out again, set the trap round about the same area. So I moved back to the pole and started picking up these roach again, and it is literally just one a chuck for them now, for these beautiful roach. So just gone back on the pole, and as you see, I had a couple of roach and the float's buried with another carp, and then he did bolt that way a little bit, so it was a bit hair raising, but he's come back round, keeping that pole tip low. It just teases them back round. And I always say it's not a race to get them in. You're not in a match. It's just about enjoying it. That's the whole point of fishing. Doesn't matter if you're blogging. It's about being out on the bank and enjoying it. So there we go, the second carp of the day. We lost one on the feeder. Come back on that pole line that we've been feeding. A couple of roach, and then it's gone off with Mr. Carp. And does feel a bit cold in the palm, this carp though. Like I said before, we're going through that season now, a change. Feeding wise, I'm continuing to be really positive with the maggots. Like you say, all the gudgeon, the roach, the perch, everything's going to be eating them. So being really positive, and then just putting a sprinkle of them pellets on top. And on that put in, there was a load of bubbles just come up from the right, slowly come to the patch, and then the float buried. So sadly, the perfect bite didn't result in the perfect outcome, and the fish did come off, and it's taken me maybe 2 hours to get the next bite. We've had loads of them little roach on the pole, and I was literally just packing the gear away. You see me side trace packed away, and I was in last cast saloon, and I was just sat with the rod out, letting everything dry out, and the rod's gone round. So hopefully we can end this session with just one last carp. We started the session with a common, I think, and we're going to end it with a fiery common as well. He's fighting more on the bank than he did in the water, but yeah, like I said at the start of the video, not my favourite time of the year when the rivers close. It is hard and you are scratching for bites, so you've got to be happy with the bites that you get. Nice simple tactics, you know, putting a few fish on the bank. All that remains is to wish you all tight lines in your own fishing, and I'll catch you all next week. Tight lines.